as you can see over there, part 2. Now I'm going to do a complete oil change on this car and see if that improves the gearbox situation. I've no doubt it will, but will it cure the noise problem? It's possible, as I've said before, that this gearbox is a little too far gone to actually sort that issue out, but it might be quite an interesting experiment to see what difference the fluid does actually make, considering that the fluid that came out the box last week was the original. I'm pretty sure about that. And I've got some new fresh fluid in the back, so we'll see if this makes any difference. I come here again on another scorching hot day. Unbelievable to be working in these conditions. I should be at a car show, but no, I'm here once again. This is part 2 of can we get this Rover 45 CVT working. And I didn't actually go into much detail about the spec. It is an Impression S3 CVT, the Impression S3 being one of the later specs, and this being a 2003 car would be very much in the middle of Project Drive when they started basically taking things away and making these cars a little bit cheaper round the corners. But in all fairness, there isn't an awful lot of things that you would notice would be missing with this car. I mean, if I show you in here, the biggest obvious thing is the removal of the trims off the doors. There should be a wood trim here to match this wood panel going along. It should be like a continuous line, but it isn't continuous. They got rid of that and they started cheapening the cars out. There's not really too much they started doing excessively to the interior. I mean, they changed obviously the badge for this cheaper version, and then these seats kind of changed around 2002. So there was quite a few things they actually changed, and these seats are not quite as comfortable as the Rover 75 seats, but in all fairness, they are actually still very comfortable, and I can tell you that. And a few people were asking about the condition of this car underneath. Is this car worth it? Well, this family has owned this car for 6 years, and to quote the owner, it's the most reliable car they've ever had. And they've had a number of cars, supposedly much better cars, but it just goes to show you that Rover 45s are very understated cars in the community, and you can still buy one for dirt cheap. And if you want reliable motoring, even at this age, they kind of prove otherwise, and my example is proving that now. Obviously we've got the hairpin alloys, which I got wrong in the last video. Apologies for that. I confused them with another wheel, but they're hairpins, and they actually look like a hairpin, so kind of that's the detail. We've had some new discs up front. I think the rear discs have also been changed, and they certainly have been changed about a year ago. It's got new brake fluid at the front. It is pretty solid underneath. There isn't actually much scabbiness whatsoever, and usually you don't get that. It's usually the sills on a 45, but it's really tidy underneath. It's a bit dirty at the moment, but ultimately it's very tidy. It looks worse than what it is. The rear arches are absolutely fine. There's no problem there. The bumpers have gone where the clips have gone, but that's usual on these cars. But ultimately we've just got this little bang at the back where I'm afraid it has gone into the boot, argument with a lamppost. But surprisingly, all the reverse sensors actually still work, which is amazing. Underneath the car, most of the oil leaking, by the way, the garage, I can confirm, filled up with 4 litres of engine oil. Now, that makes me aware that there could be some engine issues. If the garage have put 4 litres in, that is quite low for a K series. A K series should hold around 4.5 litres, maybe up to a bit more of engine oil at full capacity. And for the garage to have put 4 litres in, or near to 4 litres, suggests that rocker cover has been leaking quite badly for some time. So we may look at that at some point, because the oil underneath was very obvious. But it just shows you how bad rocker cover gaskets can actually leak so badly that it loses that amount of oil. And I suspect the owner took the car to the garage 12 months ago, and they said the engine oil was fine. So in the space of 12 months, it's gone down quite a bit. But that was the only thing done to this car. So I can confirm that the oil was put in the actual engine and not automatic transmission fluid in the gearbox. Well, that's good, because we know that this car has not run on the incorrect fluid, which is, I would say, the incorrect fluid is worse than the oil that we took out last week. Anyway, I think we need to get cracking. Right, okay, just pull this. The bonnet catch is exactly the same on this car. It's just up here and just flick it to the right. Come on, this lovely Rover grille. And obviously we've got the usual Rover 45. That is something they deleted after this as well, because they just wanted to get rid of the 45 to make them a little bit more cheaper. And they could actually put it on the 25 and 75. Hey, why not have one badge for 3 cars instead of one badge, well, 3 badges for 3 cars essentially. It is a very rare car, this car. I mean, we have got rocker cover we've got some leaks on that side which suggest that the rocker cover has leaked into this area, which I'm a bit suspicious about, because potentially you don't want oil going anywhere near the timing belt. That is something that I might have to mention just as a precaution. But we have dreadful oil. It's just gone everywhere down there. As I say, Beatrix was exactly the same when I bought her, and this can clear off. It needs a new rocker cover gasket, but that's the only thing this needs. I mean, it's dirty, but it's very honest. The coolant is actually very clean, so it's had a few coolant changes. It is a tiny bit low, but that's absolutely fine. But as we say, there's just nothing else. I mean, they've used some cable ties here because the original clips have obviously broken. That can sometimes happen. But overall, we did all the major prep last week, and ultimately, it's a good car. It's a good car. It's not worth scrapping unless we have a complete gearbox failure, and even then, you can actually get. No, I've opened the filler flap, Andrew. Well done. Ultimately, I'll just pop this back in. It's still worth trying to problem solve. Anyway, we have a very, very nice, clean filter. And do you know what? Not much has come out of that, so I'm pretty pleased. Look, at the end of the day, I don't want to be faffing around with this filter. The thing is with the mini CVT filters, and why they actually are not particularly, they have caused the owners some problems, is because where the oil actually comes in, it's actually lower down on the mini, and it's possible it's too close to the actual bottom of the pan to actually provide sufficient pressure going to the oil pump. That for me is the biggest I think problem. But the idea would be that you would sort of cut a recess in the mini filter to get this opening a bit closer to the filter element itself. This it's like a Scotch-Brite material, and some of the filters I've been told don't have this this feel and touch. That's the other issue. If the filter material is different, that can also cause problems. But anyway, this is coming out, and we are going to put this pan back on. Now I'm just going to pop my overalls on, and we'll go from there. Right, if I just take you under here again, we've just allowed the gearbox to just drip. Excuse the sun, guys. There isn't actually a great deal on the floor, but as you see again, it just looks pretty clean. A little bit more dirty than what I would like. There's still some remnants that I'm going to have to get rid of, but overall okay. You can see the bottom end of the car, we have a little bit of rust on that side. I'm afraid I forgot my proper jack, so the scissor jack and an axle stand, because there is a little bit of rust in the usual area around the footwell area just here. On this side it's been plated, and this is one heck of a big flexing, bigger than the one I've got on mine. That's interesting. So that's something they definitely changed, because this looks like the original exhaust. It's very original and very tidy under here. So, you know, as I say, the oil leaks have gone everywhere at the front. It's just sort of moved around the front, so it's not too bad. But now I'm going to get the pan back on. It might be a bit tight to get it back in, but you just got to give it a good push. There we go, done. That's nicely in place, and that is where the oil gets picked up and fed through into the pump. this really speeds things up. Right, now this is done, I can now take this off. So get the axle stand out of the way. Okie dokie, and we're going to see what happens when we put the oil in. We're going to put the oil in next, and I've got to borrow something from my own car, which is the dipstick, because as you know, in this car the dipstick has kind of shut itself on the handle as they usually do. My handle is pretty good, so I'm going to use that to test the fluid, but we need to drop the car to level ground because we are now going to put the new fluid into the box and cross our fingers. Right, now this is the fluid we are going to be using. It is Westway Lubricant CVT Fluid 799. It is fully synthetic for mini cars and MG Rover applications. It says right on the bottom of this bottle. This is what I've used in my 45, and it's what I'm going to use in this. It contains everything you need, all the lubricants and all the additives in order to make this gearbox work perfectly. Now, the next thing is to find the right sort of filler. I need a good funnel for this, and this is the one I use. Okay, so this is the funnel that I'm going to use. Okay, now it has to be flexible because that dipstick tube is in a place where you kind of have to twist it around the charcoal canister. So if I just pull the dipstick out, or what remains of the handle, in fact I can't actually get it out because the handle has decided to actually completely fall off. It is literally just falling to bits. It's not in a great shape, and that is going to make it impossible to get the actual level right because this is just completely broken, which is why I'm going to use mine. But anyway, funnel, put that dipstick over there for now. We put the funnel into the hole. Now it really is important when you're filling up, just get the funnel right into that hole. Okay, now all I will say is you've got to fill this very carefully, because if you literally drop it in, it's just going to gargle. There is a breather on this gearbox, but it's not brilliant, and it's just going to gargle air. Now you've put the pan on, there's a vacuum that will develop inside the gearbox, and what you ended up doing is replacing the vacuum with fluid. And if you put too much fluid in the gearbox, it will just glub, glub, and it will just come off the top. And believe you me, I had it with my own that I didn't show you on camera. I made a bit of a mess on top of the gearbox ribbing, but on this I'm not going to make the same mistake. So what we do is we go and aim and put about 4 litres of this CVT fluid very carefully and gently. Yeah, it would help if I actually took the top off. Oh, that's nice, fresh. It smells nice as well. This is the level and the speed you should be aiming for. This is what happens when you do it a bit too much. That's too fast. And if I stop, there you go, just like your toilet. Okay, right, so as we can kind of see there, we've used kind of 4.3 litres. Now that will get you some way to where it actually should be. Now when I filled up mine from draining the gearbox for a couple of weeks, this has been draining for about a week now, I managed to fill the gearbox up to about 4.5, 4.6 litres. So we're only a few 100 mil short. Now that could be significant, but the truth is it's enough to actually get the car started safely and to drive it down the road and see what happens. And then we will do the actual dipstick testing then. So I'm going to grab my other dipstick. Well, I'm going to clean up now and actually take this out completely. So I'm just going to pop this over there and pop the old dipstick back in. Okay, just as a measure, just to keep it there for now. Okay, now the only thing I will say is it's actually detonated to the point where it may get dislodged in the gearbox, that plastic part, so I might have to take that handle apart because you don't want that plastic piece actually going off the dipstick into the sump, so I might have to do that. But anyway, we are ready, and I've conducted yet another check underneath to make sure that we are not literally dropping £43 worth of, that's how much this cost by the way, £43 of CVT fluid all over your driveway. You know, just make sure that all the bolts are done evenly. The torque setting is about 7 to 10 newton meters, so it's just nipped up. And maybe a little bit more snug for a bit of security. But honestly, the bolts that were in there, quite frankly, when I loosened them, they weren't tight at all. So that's kind of the level we're talking about. Anyway, this is now where we actually start the car and take it for a drive. Now, I'm just going to get slightly distracted here for, as I say, people who are kind of interested in different things. And this isn't just a car channel sometimes. I get distracted by many different things. And if you come down here, I'm just going to show you this, because as someone who has always had a fascination for Doctor Who, we have a cosplayer here, and Jesus, apparently this is handmade, by the way, with parts from a few different places. If you are into Doctor Who, you will love this stuff, and so do I. That is just superb. And we've got the remains of a Dalek going on here with a lot of filler and a lot of sanding. That's a project. That's a really interesting project. So I've been distracted by quite a bit of this today. You won't know this. This is just a minute in this video, but I love cosplay. I didn't get into it, but I just love the creativity that goes into making these things. And as someone who's into Doctor Who, was into Doctor Who as a kid, this is just fab. And that helmet, you really can't see out of it. So all those Doctor Who fans who argue that the Cybermen just stroll around, literally looking like they're going to literally fall over at any moment, they can't see. You know, telling the actor to go, can you walk in a straight line along that hill? No, they'd be literally falling off it every 2 seconds. Anyway, I'll leave that back, and let's get back to the car. Okay guys, we are going to try and start the car and cross fingers and hope for luck. There was 4.2 litres in here, and let's go. I don't think the noise from what we think is the gearbox, I don't think the noise is coming from the gearbox. Just 1 second. I don't know if you heard it then, but when we started up, there was actually no noise coming from the gearbox. The noise was coming from this side. This is quite curious. I'm going to start it up again, and I'm going to get a little tool out that I haven't used before. And it is this contraption here. And if you've ever not seen one of these, it is an automotive stethoscope. And I'm going to put it on, and I'm going to keep probing some areas, because I've got a feeling the noise that we are hearing, it's not the gearbox. So I'm going to start it up again and start the process. No, it's not the bearing. It's definitely not the alternator bearing. Okay, we go around to the gearbox. Yeah, that's quiet. Cylinder 2, quiet. That's a bit louder. Okay, right. All I can say is, I'm just going to put these down now. I can hear the belt spinning. It sounds quite nice in there. There's some movement going on in the main primary shaft of the gearbox. But when I do this, that is 100% coming from this part of the engine. It's not coming from the gearbox, it's the engine. Quieter there, but over here, Now, I'm going to come away and let it warm up. That is 100% the engine. Now, I've got a feeling that could be bearings at the bottom. I'm afraid the result of running low on oil, like I had a suspicion on, may have affected the engine. Now, I'm just going to take it for a drive to see whether that gearbox now drives as it should, because that's the second problem. Potentially what we're looking here is the noise is one problem, the way the gearbox drives is the second problem. Let's see if that fluid has made a difference. Let's go for it. Right, let's put it into reverse. If I just lower the window down so you can actually hear what's going on, guys. Okay. Drive. Okay. We've got some movement. Right, drive, and off we go. Now remember, we're not quite up to oil capacity. How do we go here? How does it go? It's a bit lurchy still. That is still a little bit on the lurchy side. It's still lurching and sort of jumping between ratios as such. Tell you what, let's take it on the road to actually take it on a decent road here. Right, let's go. The gearbox does seem a little bit less smooth. We've got about 1900 RPM at 30 miles an hour, but it is quite loud in it. It seems to be driving quite nicely. Brakes feel nice and sharp. Now the trick is now, I'm going to put the gearbox into sport mode in a second, and we're going to see how it behaves, and I'm going to try it through some of the manual modes. But ultimately, it is shifting down the road. However, the oil level, it's not brilliant, but we've got to put it into sport and manual mode in order to get a dipstick reading, put more fluid in, take it on a drive again. This is the process you have to go through. But so far, I'm actually quite pleased at the way the gearbox is responding. It's just the engine. There's a question mark on what the issue is. So there's a few ideas I might have to help them out. I mean, it picks up really nicely. There's actually a lack of jerking in this gearbox. Now it has slightly flared a bit there where it is flaring a little bit when you don't want it to. Sport mode. Oh, it's picked up nicely. It's still flaring all over the place. Interesting. If I take it through some of the manual modes, free. Back into manual mode and come back in. Okay. The gearbox does seem to be over-revving itself, or whether that's the engine, but it does seem to be over-revving just a little bit. It's a very weird issue here. That's interesting. I'm going to park up and take a reading again. Right, so I'm going to get that dipstick now so we can check the fluid level. I need to unlock it because I locked it. Why the... Oh, it's not my key! Jesus Christ. Right, side beer trick. So just going to pinch your dipstick tube very, very gently in the correct way. I'm just going to take you over here. Letting it run. Come on, come out. Okay. Right. I'm going to put that there. Then we're going to put this in. Okay. Right. That's in. Now, the procedure is quite simple. All you do is you take it through individual gears, 10 seconds at a time. So give it 10 seconds and then move on to the next. You don't necessarily have to put it in sport mode, by the way, just all four or neutral, park, because it's the same thing, and reverse and drive. Okay, there is a positive engagement in this gearbox. There is definitely a more positive engagement. Neutral, reverse, just go through it a bit more quickly. It's a good, nice engagement. I can feel it, you know, get the take up, no stuttering, no dropping of the revs. The idle speed is correct, there's no codes. Right, now we do the test. No, we're not even on the dipstick. Right, here we go again. We're going to have to put more in. If it's not on the dipstick, then we can put a good few more litres in. Again, we could probably go as low as probably 4.6 litres. Okay. Okay, that's about 4.5 litres. Let's try again. Do it very slowly. So we'll do the process all over again. Start it up, you know what. Ugh. Here we go again. So that seems a little bit quieter for some reason. Keep it in all the gears and do it all over again, and I'll join you back over there. Okay, I think we have some oil on the dipstick, but not an awful lot. I'll just do it again. Okay, right, so we're pretty much up to on the dipstick. It's very difficult. I've just removed the old dipstick just for argument's sake here, but it's very difficult to see where the actual fluid level is on the dipstick. If it's new fluid, it's almost clear. It's not like the brown stuff we had before. It's very difficult to notice, but it's on the dipstick. Now I'm going to take it again for another drive, and I'll be back in a few minutes with the results. Right, we've taken this car for a drive, so the third drive. We know that the fluid is now sitting correctly on my dipstick. I've now put the old dipstick back in. We're still getting the slight over-revving issue down the road and slowing down. That is possibly a seal in the gearbox. There's a particular seal that I reckon it could be. But I don't want to rule anything out with the engine, because I think this engine needs a service. I don't think this gearbox is causing much of an issue. I think the take-up is smooth. It doesn't jerk. It doesn't stall in drive or reverse no more like it used to. And my general perception is the noise from what we thought was the gearbox, it's not the gearbox. There is actually a noise coming from the engine. Now, some people could argue that that sound is a bearing, because you've heard it enough times. Could be a bearing. The truth is, I think this engine needs a really good TLC service. So we are going to be possibly coming back to this. But for now, my advice to the owner is to drive it and see how it runs, because some things, it's had new oil topped in there by the garage. I've put new fluid in, so it is best to just let it bed in, and we'll come back on another day. But I think that the best element of this is that engine. It needs a new rocker cover. It could do with a complete oil flush. I think we can talk about an oil flush. That noise could be due to starvation. For all we know, the oil pickup tube could be blocked, and it's causing oil starvation across that engine. And that is definitely a sound coming from the region of cylinders 3 and 4. So my conclusion is the gearbox broken? It's not, but there could be something not quite right with the gearbox, but we're going to see. Time is going to be the greatest hero on this one, and time will tell. So I'm going to leave this here, and this is definitely a car that needs some TLC in the engine department. There's possibly some additives that I can use to quieten that sound down, but as some people might rightly tell me, it's a bearing, it's going to make that noise. Well, I have to be cost conscious, and it is not my car, so we kind of have to balance financial investment with, let's just see how it goes. And for now, the engine has got new oil, we've got new gearbox fluid. The gearbox for me is A+, apart from the fact that we might have a seal issue, but we don't know whether it could improve. So I'm going to leave this here, and I will come back on another day, but it's definitely going to be part 3. Anyway, I will see you soon, guys, and you take care. See you in another video.